Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome. You are watching your program 7th Round on Label TV, your Pan-African channel. Once more, welcome and Merry Xmas to all of you in advance. On my left, I am not alone on this set. On my left, you have Mr. Camille Dorian Zaou, specialist in British civilization in Africa. Mr. Camille, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Miss Eva, and thank you.
Okay, and on my right you have our sportsman of the English newsroom of Label Television. You know him from the face and from the name. He is none other but Mr. Gauthier Perchano. Gauthier, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Eva.
How are you?
I'm fine by the grace of God.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we open this program, 7th Round. You know it's your program which decrypts, analysis major information on the African continent for Africans and with Africans. We are going to talk to stop the talking and open straightforward with politics as we move to Libya. A spokesman for the Khadafi family has said that Saif al-Islam Khadafi, the son of former Libyan leader, will contest in the upcoming presidential elections in the country in 2018. Listen to the story and we will be back to decrypt this for you. Saif al-Islam Khadafi, the son of the former Libyan President Muammar Gaddafi, enjoys the support of major tribes in Libya so he can run for the upcoming presidential elections due in 2018, said Libyan tribal chief and spokesperson of the Khadafi family, Bassem al-Hashimini al-Soul. The latter made the statement on the influential local media agency Egypt Today, adding that Saif al-Islam Khadafi has the support and credentials required to end the chaos that has gripped Libya since the overthrow of his father in 2011. Al-Soul says that a platform to launch the former first son's presidential campaign will soon be launched. Today, Libya is grappling with insecurity as different factions control different parts of the country. Saif al-Islam Khadafi hopes to unify the factions and restore peace and stability in the country that was once prosperous under his father's rule. This development follows the weekend announcement by the Eastern Libyan military commander Khalifa Haftar that he would listen to the will of the free Libyan people, interpreted as an indication that he might run in next year's election. The United Nations-backed Libyan Government of National Accord in GNA has indicated that elections may be held in mid-2018. Saif al-Islam was released in June this year after 6 years of captivity by a militia group in the Libyan town of Zintan. He had been captured in November 2011 after the fall of his father's regime, and he was subsequently sentenced to the death in absentia by a court in Tripoli. Following his release, the International Criminal Court ordered for his arrest and surrender, which was backed by the GNA. He is wanted by ICC on charges of crimes against humanity during his father's unsuccessful attempts to put down the rebellion that eventually led to the fall of his regime. Remember, Libya last held elections in 2014, but the results were disputed, deepening divisions that emerged after the country's 2011 uprising. The poll led to an escalation of armed conflict and to rival parliaments and governments being set up in the capital and the east. The poll led to an escalation of armed conflict and to rival parliaments and governments being set up in the capital and in the east of the country. Libya, a country which is torn by violence and chaos since the fall of the Libyan guide, as he was called, Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. My first question will go to Gauthier Perchano. Mr. Gauthier, what does the candidacy to the presidency of 2018 of Saif al-Islam Khadafi inspire to you?
Actually, what inspires me is a very good thing because, you know, Libya is actually facing a very complicated crisis, and we are just waiting for a man who has the ability, you know, to pull the country out of this current situation, you see. And I think that being with his father, knowing the name that his father had over the country, and knowing also the power that the father had over the country, I think he might have benefited certain tips on how to...
And his long rule at the head of Libya.
Of course. So I think he might have benefited, you know, certain tips how to rule such a country. And I think that is actually standing for presidency is just a good thing.
Mr. Camille Dorian-Zao, my next question goes to you. What do you feel after watching these images and getting the information about Saif al-Islam Khadafi running for presidency in 2018?
What I think is we're getting into a new episode of the Libyan turmoil. The thing is, Khadafi was protested by the Western countries. And so when the revolts broke out in Libya, he took part into his father's side. And so the result of that was that all the Western countries said he was not far to be like his father. So
yes,
then,
and he was even imprisoned. It's important to remind our televiewers that Saif al-Islam just got out of prison some few months ago, and now that he is out and there is a government of national unity which has been created by the international community who is trying to bring back the stability into the country.
no, there is no stability in the country because
Yes.
the thing is, there is a National Union Party which is in charge of democracy in the country. But
And
the thing
he's
is,
based
you know,
in Tripoli.
yes, and Tripoli. But the thing is, the east of the country, where there is the biggest part of oil in the country, is under the command of Khalifa.
Of Khalifa
Yes,
Haftar.
yes, and Khalifa is a Protestant against the National Union system. So then there will be three sides: the National Union system, Khalifa's side, and also Saif's side, which means that this is going to be like a struggle. But we don't have to put out in mind that we don't have to forget that the Western countries such as France, England, the United States will have an eye on the elections, and they surely have to come in game and so as to choose who will be the best as the president after the election, so as to get to serve their own interests as well, because this is the real important thing. The thing is, after taking the side of his father, when his father was accused of dictatorship in 20
and hardship and even slavery.
Yes, for sure. In 2011, Western countries condemned Saif for the same crimes and trials his father was accused of. So then the thing is, he may be popular on the Libyan side, you see, but on the Western side, the crucial question is, will they allow him to be among the contenders?
To answer to your question, partly, we saw what it gave when the Western people intervened in Libya to push Khadafi into his fall and even to his death. So we think that they don't have their word to say today. What do you think, Mr. Perchano?
So what I really think is, Libya, we have to understand that Libya is a country, is a sovereign country, as is own sovereignty. So there is
like many other African countries.
Many other African countries, and I think there is no other country is intended or has the right to decide on another country. So what I just think is what has to be taken in, or what has to be taking place in Libya has to be organized by Libyans themselves. So no other people have to come in and just put things upside down.
Into their affairs, because they intervened. We had the OTAN from like the Frenchman will say, OTAN, which intervened in Libya during the crisis and pushed the fall of Muammar Gaddafi. Yeah. You had the former French president Nicolas Sarkozy, who sent his army to Libya to push Gaddafi to his fall. That uprising, up to today, the effects are still visible in the country.
Yes, for sure. And you see, NATO is one of the organisms that pushed Libya to organize some elections, first in 2011 and second in 2014. But you can see that it
was a failure.
They had that unsuccessfully because there are still been so many crises in Libya.
Yeah.
And the thing is, up to now, NATO doesn't want to go backward from the elections curtains, okay, in Libya. And the thing is, until they be there, no election will be positively held in Libya. And as I will agree with him saying that normally Libya should turn into their own sovereignty, choosing the one they think will be the suitable president after the election. But for the time being, it's a lure. It will not be possible since those Western countries will be intervening.
But your point of view is disputable on one side, because how do you think a country which is plunged in such a chaos can be possible to be totally independent from the Western past.
You see, the thing is, we should first of all be rooted back into the real regions of interventions of those Western countries. You see, Libya is one of the richest country in Africa as far as oil is concerned. And under the presidency of Khadafi, it was hard for those Western presidents to get in touch with the oil of Libya.
And I think that that was the reason for his uprising, because Khadafi, no matter what, was a man with like the Frenchman would say, avec une main de fer. He was ruling the country in his own mind and with his own principles without taking into consideration the international point of view. You see,
Khadafi came into power in 1969, so he was somehow like 27 years old. So it took a long time. Yes, it took a long time before those Western people get rid of him, because they knew that as long as he could have strength, it would not be possible. So they waited until the time he would feel old and without as much as strength as he used to have before to remove him. And this is the first thing. And the second thing is the situation was hardened by the fact that Saif himself and Khadafi had bad tensions. There were tensions between the two men, because Said was accused of being too open to Western countries. And at the time, before even the uprising against Khadafi, Said was said to be the Western countries' friend in Libya. So they thought that they could take him as an object to remove his father. But finally, when they came forward so as to remove the President Khadafi, they noticed that it took the side of his father, and so he made himself the enemy of those Western countries.
And of course, and he was even imprisoned in a part of Libya, I think in the south.
Zintan, yes, in the south.
Zintan,
where is not been out of this south, because the result of his announcement of running for the presidency is that the representatives of the south had some agreements with him, because he came on the table of negotiations and he called those pro-Khadafi who are still in the country, and the former revolutionary men who get rid of the monarchical empire that ran Libya before Khadafi took power. So he went on table with the two sides and he found some agreements so as to present him as the new contender for presidency. So in the south there, he made an agreement with the people who take him in hostage so as to take him as a prisoner. So now they released him, and they have put faith and hope in him so as he will represent the country correctly, removing Khalifa's pressure in the S, in the F, and the National Union as well, which serves the Western countries' ambitions as well. So they want a new Libya into the hands of Libyans, serving the Libyan interest. But for the time being, we have two sides with selfishness interest. The first side is Khalifa's interest with his own interest.
With the rebels?
Yeah, and the rebels are West, Daesh, and so on and so forth. And the second side is the Western countries with their own interests, which at all do not serve the Libyan interest.
With the government of national unity, which is headed by Fayez al-Sarraj.
And the National Union is a kind of neo-colonialism that they want to install in Libya.
Of course, and one more time, it is the neo-colonialism they want to install in Libya, and that neo-colonialism, which was a result of the uprising of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Some experts talking about a new Libya. Some experts think that Said al-Islam being the closest of the children of Muammar Gaddafi, because remember, Muammar Gaddafi has 5 or 6 sons, and Said al-Islam during his father's rule was the closest to politics and to his father. People and some experts think that bringing back Said al-Islam, Gaddafi is bringing back the ruling of Muammar Gaddafi. What do you think, Gauthier Porchano?
Actually, they're not totally wrong. You know, they're not totally wrong, because the fact of being close to the father, okay, it means that the father was trusting him.
Yes.
You know, somehow the father was trusting him. And I think that the father also was kind of preparing him, you know, to be a successor, of course, the next president when he passes away. So it's not really wrong to be thinking that bringing back Gaddafi's son is like bringing Gaddafi on power again.
I don't really share this opinion, you see, because just before the uprising against Gaddafi, you see, Saif was undertaking a PhD in the London School of Economics. And then when the situation broke out, they said that his PhD research paper was a plagiarism because they just wanted to despise the efforts that he made to get close to the Western countries. In fact, taking the side of his father was seen as a kind of betrayal.
Yes,
on behalf of the Western countries. And then if he comes to power, those countries know that they will have no interest from them. And maybe there will be another impeachment, either an impeachment or they will ask for an embargo against Libya that will be either political or economical, you see? And the situation here with the crisis in Libya will never favor if there is an impeachment, a political and an economical impeachment in Libya, that will never favor the economical status of Libya. And so running for the presidency in Libya is something that should be viewed and analyzed with a meticulous viewpoint. Yes. Because then there is a possible impeachment, first of all, that will make Libya bend down before the Western countries, and that will increase the risk of other crisis in Libya, and finally social revolts as well. Then that will be a kind of game, a kind of trap in which the Libyan people have put themselves, because if they are fought it before, well, they will not uprise normally against Khadafi. They would find maybe social and I was saying comfortable manners. They will find social and comfortable manners to find out solutions dealing with what was called the dictatorship by Khadafi, you see. And the thing is, they did not take any lesson from what happened in Tunisia or neither in Libya. The thing is,
and even in Egypt with Hosni Mubarak, the uprising of Hosni Mubarak in Egypt.
Algeria, Tunisia, and Egypt had the same fate, so they would think about that. And you see, even before the uprising broke out as a fatal issue, Saif came on TV and he said that this happens in the neighbor countries, and so Libyan people should think about the results of the uprising, and then they never put it in mind.
I have a question for you. Talking about the Western powers, before the former president of the United States, Barack Obama, during his last speech, he said the worst thing that he did during his ruling was the intervention in Libya and in Syria. Can you add a commentary to that?
No, he was right. He was right. But the thing
was sending the NATO, and that he did that according to the call made by Nicolas Sarkozy, the former French president.
Yes, he was right to think that he had profound regrets, you see, because he can, everyone can feel the chaos there in Libya. Libya was considered as the most admirable country in Africa.
And one of the most developing, and it is also important to remind that Libya during Muammar Gaddafi's rule and Libya today, oh my God, what a contrast.
What a very big difference.
Gaddafi raised what was called Gaddafism, drawing examples from what was called Nasserism, because we all know that in Egypt, Nasser was a very important leader in the Arab League. And so when Gaddafi came to power in Libya, he thought that he could draw examples from Nasserism so as to implement a good strategy of governance in Libya. So Western people thought he was a dictator, but in Africa his strategies went on positively. So he initiated a book that was called the Green Book, taking into account 3 bases of political governance, which was political points, cultural points, and economic points. And up to his death,
uprising?
Yes, up to his death, we know everyone can say that it was a good guide for political issues. And Saif, he tends to reinstall the Green Book so as to govern over Libya, if only elected as a president.
And as Gotiper Channel said, Said al-Islam Khadafi was surely in the school of his father, meaning that he learned a lot from his father's rule. But Muammar Gaddafi, a dictator, according to Western powers, can we say that from a man to whom we owe the African Union, the creation of the African Union, can we say that of a man who installed the first satellite in Africa, so who we owe our internet connection to most of the African countries, can we say about a man that was a free school for people in his country, free electricity, free water? It's true that on the other side it is disputable because we have stories about him being still having slaves up to the 21st century, because most of the women that were serving as his guardians were said to have been slaves, and still those informations were still given by some journalists of Western media. Muammar Gaddafi, a dictator.
You know, what we have to understand first is that Western people don't understand the way things are done in Africa. You know, the democracy, or the way that makes sense of democracy in Western countries is not the same we actually make sense of democracy in Africa. And you know, a ruler in Africa has to be somebody strong, has to be a strong person.
Somebody who rules the country with an iron hand.
Not necessarily somebody ruling the country with an iron hand, but somebody who's firm in his decision. Somebody, because you know, the king, let me take it like this, because you know, I would like to take a step back into the far past of Africa.
Before civilization.
Before civilization. You see, the king was not somebody we had to make friendship with. So like, the king was not somebody's friend.
He was there to rule.
He was
fearful.
just
there.
Yes, he was fearful.
And he was feared.
He was
Yes, for
fearful.
sure.
And of course, and I think this is what Khadafi has tried to incarnate, you know, and Western people just don't have a clue on how things are actually going in Africa. And I think, you know, with all of what you've been quoting, you know, the man to whom we owe the first satellite in Africa, you see,
free school, free education in the country, free electricity. He paid the electricity in most of the African countries, Gabon being an example, Cameroon too, where he provided electricity and water for most of the populations. Since the death of Muammar Gaddafi, all this has stopped.
All this, you know, has really stopped, and it's regrettable today. You see, before Libyans used to be people really proud.
Yes.
You see, you could not meet Libyans, like many Libyans, out of the country, you know, because they had everything. Khadafi provided everything for them to stay in the country.
Of course.
Now that Khadafi is no more, you can see what is going on in there.
Yes, and Libya has become a slave market where our African brothers and sisters are being sold.
Now we can see through this vacancy that this
all
guy,
this because of the Western people getting into our affairs. Because if Muammar Gaddafi was alive today, I don't think that all the chaos which is occurring in Libya could have been.
Yes, you're right. But the thing is, we are the Africans are guilty for what happens in Africa. You see, the thing is, we want to establish political models in our own countries, taking the models from Western countries.
It has been like that since colonization and
we have our own history. There is no chart that specifies that we can't establish a political model drawing it from our political background. You see, European countries or American countries have set in political institutions according to their own histories. And so if we want to match our political institutions taking into account their own histories, then it is impossible. And this is what the problem is, you see. This is what it smells the rats. The thing is, when Gaddafi came into power, what he wanted to do is he wanted to avoid capitalism, he wanted to avoid communism. He said he would make himself a socialist.
Gaddafism.
Yes, Gaddafism, known as a socialist, making Libya a socialist country. What was the result of that? The result of that was that in Africa, African people had always lived under socialism terms, you see. And so I had a game coming from the forest. I would share it with you, and I would share it with him. So after colonization, after the independence, African people turned themselves into selfish people. And this is what Gaddafi didn't want to demonstrate over the world. And you see, there is also the question of the New World Order after the Cold War. You see, the New World Order has already split the country into two parts. The first part being the Russia side, and the second one is the United States side. Then seeing a country which does well without integrating none of the two sides is somehow like defying the two sides. And this is why even
they see it as a sin.
Yes, it was even reversing as an insult. You see,
yes.
Then. And this is even why sometimes you can see that there seems to be an opposition between the United States and Russia. But as far as Libya's case is concerned, Russia has never showed any sign of intervention, mostly because Gaddafi refused to stand by Russia's side, neither by nor by the United States side.
Of course.
And so then nowadays you see that they would push Libya, the Western countries, will push Libya to choose one of the two sides. And since the United States is there on the field, they are likely to be the more persistent. You see?
You've brought a question into my mind. Talking about institutions, two of these institutions come into my mind. The International Criminal Court, ICC, who is still pursuing Saif al-Islam Khadafi, and the African Union. First, let's talk about the ICC's role in Africa. Why is it that the International Criminal Court only judges African leaders and talks about crimes against humanity every time they come? We saw the example with Laurent Gbagbo of Côte d'Ivoire, I meant to say. We saw another example in Rwanda. Another example that we can also cite here is the example of DRC. So many examples can be cited. But when are they going to follow or pursue Nicolas Sarkozy, the former French president, for all the crimes that have been taking place in Libya, partially because of his fault?
Yes, you see, the role is the ICC is to try all the criminals, mostly involving in civil wars. You see, but the thing is,
crimes against humanity.
Yes, but crimes against humanity mostly happen after the Second World War happened mostly during civil wars. You see, then the thing is, when Gbagbo was arrested, some African presidents stood against his arrest, saying that we never witnessed any Western president country.
Some African presidents, it's not to curtail, some African presidents and also the former president of the African Union, Jean-Ping.
Yes, they said no Western president country had ever been arrested and condemned under the terms of criminal reasons or humanity and so on and so forth reasons. Then why would you always arrest Middle East presidents or African presidents? Because those are the countries in which the population seems to be the weakest, you see.
But what gives them the credit to think that, is there an African court who will go and judge Western rulers or leaders?
The thing is, African people still sound to be weak in front of the others. They always complain to the ICC, to the United States and to Europe, knowing that France will never complain about the problems to Gabon or to Cameroon. You see, if the African stood and said, we have to decide on our own, and so things would change. You see, the case with Saif is that Saif was condemned to death normally, but yes, he was condemned to death. But the thing is, the decision was never applied because you see, it was not judged by the ICC, but it was judged in Libya, and he never appeared. He never appeared to the court, and this is the second point, because if he appeared to the court, people might have killed him. You see, he never appeared to the court, and the thing is, the ICC is total partial against Africa. Yeah. You see, the ICC is total partial against Africa. And I was telling it before, the African people should be blamed for what happens to Africa. Once they think that it is useless calling for Western intervention, then at that moment, we are sure that Africans will have the fate of Africa into their own hands. And the second point is, they always matter about political, economical, social embargoes coming from Western countries. But once again, it's because we take in hand their own institutions that we depend on them. Once we think that we have our, just in Gabon.
But that dependence, I think that dependence is mostly financial, because I heard during the presidential elections in Equatorial Guinea, the president Teodoro Obiang Mbazogo, who said during an interview on another media, he was talking about the implementation of the French into his country, and mostly he was specifically talking about the BMA, the problem about the acquisition of badly acquired goods, where he was pursued, him and his son were pursued by the French authorities, telling that they have been stealing the riches in Guinea and investing in foreign countries. But the president Obiang Mbazogo said something that was rather very important and very true. He spoke about the fact that when somebody gives you money, the person is the person who tells you what to do and how to do it. And when he was talking about that, he was talking about the IMF more especially the International Monetary Fund, who gives money to Africans, and through those kind of institutions, those institutions now they have the right to tell our rulers how to lead the countries, what to do and when to do it. Reason why he was saying that instead for our countries, African countries, to be taking money from those institutions at a rate of 70%, it is better to get a loan from them at 30% so that they can leave you the liberty to do what you want and when you want it. What do you think?
What I think, it's just a salutary decision, you know, because whenever you go and beg in front of somebody, make sure that the person will always impose his will on you. And this is, of course, what Africans have been doing ever since. And last time, the same president of Guinea was talking of an institution. And I also want to talk about Khadafi, because Khadafi wanted to build an African bank of development,
yes,
where Africans could go and just borrow money. And you see, the African countries will not be, between quotes, slaves as they are right now, because when you go and beg, you know, in front of somebody, the person will always give you money, and after that, he will implement, or it will cause you to implement his mind. You know,
of course,
that's
to
how
do
it is.
according to his will and what he thinks is good for you. But now we will move to the next element. But before, an advice for the Libyans.
Yes, the piece of advice I would give to the Libyans is they should vote Saif, because through him Libya is sure to come back to stability, and they should stop focusing on Western countries' views and political tensions coming from this side, you see. And the last point is they have been silly once, and they should stop reacting the same way.
I like the expression,
yes,
being silly. Because
once, yes, then they should stop reacting the same way, because every single person on earth wishes to stay in a country where there is peace, there is love, and there is development
and security.
Say for sure. Then I think this is what Khadafi offered, and this is what Saif is going to offer as well. Then they should vote him.
An advice, go tip channel for the Libyans?
Yes.
In 1 minute, please.
In 1 minute, of course. As for me, I would say that I'm not the spokesperson of any, any candidates in Libya. But what I will say is that the Libyans have their destiny into their hands, and so they are the only ones who are able to choose what is best for them. And the only advice I can ever give them is to see where their interest really is. If it is with Khadafi's son, and then they should just do what they have to do, because no solution will never come out of Libya if themselves they don't find the best solutions.
Just like solutions for Africans and for the African continent will never come out from outside Africa, but only Africans can find solutions for their problem. The last word about this element and this story about Saif al-Islam Khadafi's candidacy for the presidency in 2018, I can say, rest in peace, Muammar Khadafi, and farewell to you and your family. Now, let's move on a less lighter note. We are going to talk about sports. As our sportsman, Mr. Gauthier Perchano, is here. Numerous Nigerian football stars had the privilege to watch a match with their icon Thierry Henry, and during the ceremony, on the other hand, he was crowned as the Igbo best goaler in the world, I think. And Gauthier Perchano is the one who gave us this element. Listen and watch.
Lagos had a fulfilled day as they were offered a rare chance to watch a match with Arsenal legend Thierry Henry at the landmark Event Center, courtesy Guinness Nigeria PLC. Henry, who is fondly called Igwe by his numerous Nigerian fans, was also coronated as he was labeled the king of goals. Though the French striker also played for clubs like Monaco, Barcelona, and Juventus, his time in London is fondly remembered across the world. When asked who was the best African player he played with while at Arsenal, the ex-striker picked Kanu Nwankwo. He explained that his technical ability stands him out. Henry, however, noted that the humble former Nigerian Super Eagles captain was widely underrated. As he was providing answers to the question, he said to journalists, "Don't forget about Lauren. I also love his game, but when it comes to the techniques, I will give it to Kanu. I am not saying this because I'm in Nigeria. Even if I was in another country, I will say same. Kanu was very good, but he is underrated. He is so humble, nice guy. You never hear any bad thing coming from him, just positive things." Henry also recalled his time at Monaco with Victor Ikpeba, who was also present with other ex-Super Eagles stars at the landmark event center on Sunday.
The equal of gold, Mr. Thierry Henry.
As I was announcing, numerous Nigerian football fans had the privilege to watch a match with their icon and star, ex-France and Arsenal striker Thierry Henry. In the same line, the star was coronated the Igwe of goals in a ceremony organized by Guinness. Gote Perchano, a step towards unity through sport. What do you think?
Yes, I think, it's very, 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 very good thing to see how Africans are actually coming together. Let us remind that Thierry Henry is not Nigerian native, okay? But what is very good to see is that because of his being black, he's been accepted in Nigeria, he's been invited in Nigeria, and he's been crowned as the Igwe. And let us remember,
Igwe is a king.
Igwe is the king or God.
Yes.
So it's been crowned the Igwe of goals in Nigeria. And what is really interesting here is that they could have chosen, a native from Nigeria.
JJ
Okocha, Kanu Nwankwa, or even Victor Ikpeba. But they decided to crown Thierry Henry, certainly because of his, because of his rankings, because of his way of scoring goals, because of his numbers of goals also. So what is
during
really
his career?
During his career. And what is really interesting is that, of course, yes, we can say it's a step towards unity between Africans, because they really could have chosen somebody from Nigeria, you see, or somebody from Western Africa. But they did say, no, we want to recognize somebody for his true value. And that, I think, Thierry Henry was the best man.
What do you think, Miss Camille?
I would say that I'm totally against Gauthier. You see, this is where the shoe pinches because you say Thierry Henry is not totally a native from Africa. And the thing is, this is the single and first visit of Thierry Henry in Nigeria.
Yes.
Then I can't understand how they came to award him such a title knowing that he'd never been there before. And the second point is, we've never witnessed any charity coming from Thierry Henry in this zone.
So the Nigerian population.
Yes, in Nigeria or so and so forth. Knowing that he's been the partner of several Nigerian people. He played with Dr. Ipekba, he played with Nwankwo Kanu in Arsenal as well. So then he knew about Nigeria, but he never visited the country, never visited his friends in this country. So I would even wonder if his interest toward this country was real, is really to be welcomed heartfully. And as you were saying that you are pointing out the fact that there are several Nigerian players, then taking out of the sports a stranger because he's never been in Nigeria once before that time, taking out of the sport a stranger and giving him such an award is something that seems to despise the importance of the local players. And you see, Nwankwo Kanu, Rashidi Yekini, JJ Okocha are those players who were part of the glorious years of Nigeria.
Yes.
And those players made Nigeria shine all over the world. And you can even feel that during the 1994 World Cup, Nigeria really had a good performance over the world.
Yes.
And the players we are just bringing out as very important players made Nigeria an important football nation all over the world. And even though Thierry Henry was not awarded the Igwe of football in Nigeria, this would not prevent the other African players from opening new bridges from Africa to Europe or to America or to Asia.
So you think the choice of awarding or crowning Thierry Henry as Igwe of goals, bad choice?
Yes. On which basis?
Okay, I will put it clear. What you don't understand is the title is not only for Nigeria. It's to recognize the black man who has the potential, the biggest potential to be, crowned the Igwe of goals.
So, a black man, sorry to interrupt you, a black man recognized. We have other great players.
Of course.
We have Abedi Pelé, we have Roger Mila in himself. Cameroon, we have Samuel Eto'o, if we want to talk
Didier
about the
Drogba.
New generation. We have Didier Drogba, Adebayor, Emmanuel Adebayor. We have Asamoah Gyan from Ghana, and we greet our Ghanaian friends who are surely watching us. We have Asamoah Gyan, who has just even created an aeronautics company, Baby Jet. They people that are doing great things for Africa. Why a Frenchman?
Yeah, in fact, if they really took a Frenchman, it's not because of his being French, right? It's in recognition of what he has, done so far.
In the sports world, in the football world.
Of course, in the football world. Now, the title doesn't focus on, charity. It doesn't focus on helping orphans or anything like this. No, it's only related to goals. And of course, I have some records here if you don't mind, right? Thierry Henry, he was the winner of a World Cup in 1998 with France. He was the winner of a Cup of Confederation in 2003 with France, winner of the Euro. And, we can count. So they wanted to elect anybody who deserves. It's not a matter of, because he's my friend, because he's used to coming to Nigeria, because he's used to coming clubbing with, Nigerian people, or it's
so
not on the basis of this.
So you think that Thierry Henry, contrary to other African players, deserves that title more than all the players we have cited here?
Of course, I think yes.
Or that he has done greater things than Samuel Eto'o or Didier Drogba?
Even the question is, do you consider Latin American people as black people?
Of course.
Then, so... there are some others like Romario, Rivaldo, and so on.
Oh, those guys are really far away. Those guys are really...
They are already retired, and so as Thierry Henry. And Thierry Henry is even the vice manager, the second manager of Belgium,
yes.
The Belgian team. So, which means that, in fact, it would not even be in the scope of those people who should be presented as contenders, because he's still involved in football activities. But then the thing is, such a ceremony taking place in Nigeria should have a look upon the African players, because it seems to show that Africa has nothing to offer.
No, it's not really that. What you don't understand, it's because of the number of goals that he has. Thierry Henry has most goals than Didier Drogba. He has many more goals than...
I will stand against. I will somehow stand against, because Didier Drogba is the best goal scorer in Ivory Coast, and he's the best goal scorer in Chelsea as well. And so is Thierry Henry for France and Arsenal. So why would you say that Thierry Henry would be better than...
Are you actually aware of what that guy did in Arsenal?
Pardon?
Are you really aware? Are you on a picture of what the guy...
Yes, I am aware.
He even has a statue for himself.
Yes, excuse me, my question would be to ask you, are you also aware of what some other African players such as Didier Drogba and Samuel Eto'o...
Let me remind you something.
Let me take the floor, please.
Okay.
There is a statute so as to celebrate his good fortunes in Arsenal. But the thing is, he never offered any Champions League to Arsenal. But Didier Drogba did. You see,
of course,
Didier Drogba offered the Champions League to Chelsea.
Chelsea, of course.
Thierry Henry never did so. Second, the first point. The second point is Didier Drogba took his own courage to go back to Chelsea when Chelsea was at its worst moment. But Thierry Henry never wanted to go back to Arsenal.
No matter that he already had a very good reputation in the footballistic world.
Thierry Henry never wanted to take courage after leaving Barcelona and go back to Arsenal when Arsenal was facing very bad moments on the international stage. And so, far from picking out. Beyond picking out goals and so on and so forth, we should also see the human dimensions.
Yes, of course, noting that
because
Nigeria
is sharing human values.
And that's it. So you were talking about Didier Drogba, excuse me, both of you, you were talking about Didier Drogba is equally important as you were talking about the human side of sports. Didier Drogba is one of the people who helped to unite Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire during the crisis in
After
the country. After Gbagbo's issues, and that is not even the only issue. He has also opened a hospital in his country.
You have to understand.
And now I want to talk about Thierry Henry and Nigeria, knowing that he's going to an African country like Nigeria, who has been facing, and with Boko Haram, the terrorists around, he could do something for the country.
Of course, I totally agree that he could do something for the country. But what you seem to forget is that the title was only focusing on the goals, not on the humanitarian side.
But I think that Mr. Camille Dorian Zaou was mostly talking, when he's talking about the human side, is because giving somebody the title of Igwe, knowing what an Igwe is in Africa, is it not so heavy for somebody who is not even
they really
part of the
categorized it.
continent?
Igwe of goals, not Igwe of football. You understand? So
yes.
There's the difference. Igwe of goals. It means that the one who scored, many goals and who overpassed the others.
But so, did he score more goals than Didier Drogba?
Of course.
Did he score more goals than Samuel Eto'o?
Of course.
I think that is disputable.
No.
And talking about Didier Drogba, we have some images that Lai Chun, the producer of this program, has just sent for us. And he is even having a charity. He's also very involved, much involved in charity in his country, Côte d'Ivoire. So it can be related on both sides. You are for and you are against. But I think that's...
No, let us not go off track. Okay, let us focus.
Let us focus on the fact, you see. I accept that we're focused on goals. But the thing is, we organize the ceremony, which is Guinness, right?
Guinness, right.
We not take into account the political tensions that
of course, they wanted to be
Nigeria.
free of politics. They wanted to organize their own thing and decide.
How can you think that you're in a social environment and you don't care about what the people in your environment
and how can you think sports can unify people
without considering those social frictions?
We equally have a picture of Samuel Eto'o, who is just broadcasted by our producer Lai Chun. We greet Samuel Eto'o, who is surely watching this program. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Gauthier, what were you saying?
So, of course, I was saying that we don't have to go off track. Let us focus. Guinness not organize the event alone. They organize the event certainly with the approval of the authorities.
Yes.
And organizing such an event, of course, the authorities has to be on a picture of what you guys are organizing and on what basis you guys are going to grant, such a title to this person. And I think that if the Nigerian authorities accept it, it's because, of course, Thierry Henry was the best man for that crown.
I'm not sure that they already let the Nigerian authority aware of the fact that Thierry Henry will be nominated for the title for the award.
Of course.
He wasn't even nominated, he was crowned. I don't think he was crowned.
I don't know if the Nigerian authorities were
investing in the
because
youth for
normally
a
they should not be.
Of course they were. Of course, because he was onto TV sets, local TV sets.
After the award, that's before. He was there first of all as a celebrity, first of all, and secondly, maybe he knew that he would be crowned, but I don't think the Nigerian authority did. And you see, no matter what happens, most of the time when there is a big event in the world, it never takes place in Africa. Most of the time it takes place in Europe or in America. Then coming to Africa, coming over Nigeria and organizing such an event without considering the social atmosphere of the country is somehow showing to African people that they'll still be below below the level of consideration that should be given to them.
Why you guys always want that when we organize something, for a festivity, to enjoy ourselves. Why should we talk about Boko Haram? Why do we have to talk about anger in Africa? Why do we have to talk about social issues?
Because they're the realities of the African continent currently.
Of course.
Boko Haram is a reality which most of the countries in Central Africa, notably, and even in West Africa, like Niger, Cameroon,
don't you agree with me that
Central Africa and Chad and Nigeria are facing currently, so it's part of the reality.
Eva, don't you agree with me that sometimes we have to forget about our sorrows? We have to forget about our being crying, we have to forget about our social problems, and we have just to sometimes go party,
please go
enjoy
to
ourselves.
Let me put you in
Sometimes, of course, yes, because reminding the people that you are poor, your children are dying.
Let me put you.
One person at a time, please.
Let me put you in a picture and example, right? In a factual example. Let's think I am rich and you're poor, and I want to organize a very important celebration.
Yep.
But I don't have enough space on my plot of land. Then I require your plot of land because you're poor, and I know that you don't have money, you don't have food for your family. But I come and I will organize my events, and I don't even spare any food, any money for you, so as to thank you. So as to thank you for the effort you made to accept me my organizing my events on your plot of land. How would you consider my act? You're poor and I'm rich, and I organize on your plot of land. I don't give you anything.
So I know this is, I assume this is bad, but here is not the context. The context is just celebration.
The context is that he was gold on the African
How can you
grounds?
have fun in a place where there is no peace?
But the thing is, sometimes we have to forget about our sorrows. We have to forget about our, our children being killed.
After that event, when the next day comes, the problems comes back.
Yeah, of course, but at times, don't you think that for your spirit, at times, it's good to forget about everything?
So you want
to enjoy
people to
a little moment?
You can't forget totally, because if today we decide to party on this set and party and do everything, and if we were in Nigeria, for example, we party with Thierry Henry, but tomorrow we will face back our realities, because tomorrow the problem of Boko Haram
is an Epicurean philosophy, and this has nothing to do with the social situation in Africa. You see, I would accept if they organize such an event in France or in England, because there is peace and there is nothing wrong as
Who
such
told
as
you that in France there is peace?
this is what they
England has also been victim of several
this is what they are used to. This is how they are used to showing Africa out of our own borders, showing that Africa is a land of dangerousness, you see,
while Africa is a land of riches and opportunities.
Then knowing
and
that
is why the Western people don't want to leave us alone to manage and
knowing
our
that
countries
they always present our lands in these sites, then why are they coming here? This is the question. The thing is, this was so selfish.
Because they are coming here because Africa is the place to be. They're always coming here because Africa is the place to be.
Do you know the amount of money that they raised all along the ceremony? Yes, and it took place.
Where does that money go to?
Yes, it took place in Africa, and so you see, most of the African rich people attended, who are interested in sport, attended the ceremony. And you see that the richest, do you know that the richest man in Africa is a Nigerian guy?
Especially,
of
yes,
course.
And it is Nigerian Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest man for some years right now.
Then you should understand that at times, when they feel that in Europe or in America, the interest that will raise money is not felt by the rich people of the continent, they have to move. And I think this was a financial reason, as we have to remove the fact that Africa is suffering from several plagues, you see. Yes. This was for financial reason that they decided to organize their events in Africa. And
a last thing to say? We're running out of time.
Okay, so what I have to say is that sometimes, of course, we have to enjoy ourselves, because life is not only made of war, it's not only made of Boko Haram, it's not only made of anger, it's not only made of, all those things. So sometimes life is made of moment we have to enjoy. And saying that, no, this ceremony had to take into account, the social problems going in Nigeria, Boko Haram stuff, I don't totally agree with this. So Thierry Henry was the best man for the crown, and he was given the crown, and nobody's going to take that away from him. That's all.
Mr. Zhao, any word?
Yes, I would say that if the ceremony had to be open in any other Western country facing the same crisis, the authorities will never accept, because they will be focused on how to solve the problems they face, that tackle their society, their people. So I think that even though the ceremony took place, it was a way to despise the African values. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to close this program. I was your humble host. I was with, on my right, you had Gauthier Perchano, Mr. Sportsman of the English Newsroom of your Pan-African channel. And on my left, you had Mr. Camille Dorion Zaou. I thank both of you for accompanying me and our televiewers throughout this program.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I will be right back with you at 7:30 exactly Central African time for information for your evening news, information on Label TV, your Pan-African channel. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. And don't forget that this program was produced by Laichun and Bill Menge. We thank the whole and the entire staff of Label Television for the production and for the accompaniment through this program. And meet you at 7:30 exactly. Don't forget Central African time. Merry Xmas in advance. Goodbye.